Mic check. All right, okay, we're back. All right, Mike was not plugged in. Anyway, how are you? How is everyone doing? Good to see you. Good to see everyone. Hello, Logan. Hello, Chimaf. Hello, Big L. Appreciate you coming into the chat. All right, it's a big day today, the candidates. Big save from Hikaru. Definitely looked like he was in a lot of trouble, but very important for him to save that one. Because, not gonna lie, I think if Hikaru loses the first game, it would be tough for him to come back, because then he's already a full point behind a big rival. So holding this game is super important for his chances. Yeah, so he defended well, also got a... I mean, Fabiano got a little bit low on time. It was right around... Where is it? So Fabiano made a critical mistake right around here. And I'll tell you why he made that mistake. So like here, White's better up a pawn, but he's got two passers on the queen side. But I think because he was getting low on time, he wanted to simplify a little bit, and that's why he went rook f5. But that gave away a big chunk of his advantage, and Hikaru was able to get back to a draw. And okay, here it's really kind of gone. But yeah, if he plays a move like a4 here, it's looking pretty tough. Just a4, let's say g6. I don't know, maybe just push or something, or rook d7. Looking tough for black. All right. Hello, starting chess. Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, Giant Bald. Saludos. Hello, Nova Notice. Hello, L. Right now, I should be good. Right now, I'm good. Hello, Ender. I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing? Hello, Ender. Okay, so that was really the biggest game of the candidates. Like, again, if Fabiano wins that game, it's going to be tough for Hikaru to come back. But now he's got some good pairings ahead of him, and he has good chances of grabbing the lead potentially. He's tomorrow going to be playing with the white piece against Vidit. I'm curious how he's going to do there. Definitely an opportunity to get ahead. And then he gets black, I believe, against Abbasov. So okay, not going to be easy because he is black, but you know, he is playing against a low seed there. And then this game was also pretty exciting between Firouzja and Prag. Just an open Spanish. I thought, honestly, that Firouzja was in a little bit of trouble right around... Okay, all of this was fine. I want to say right around here. Because... Or here. Yeah, so here. Because he has 5 minutes on the clock. He needs to make another 12 moves against 20. And I think he's just a little bit worse. But I think Prag forced the issue with rook here and here, which didn't quite work out. I think if Prag had not done that and just sort of played it a little bit slower, then he would have had a good chance to win. But Prag forced it a little bit too much. Hello, Thunderman. Hello, Rami. Oh, you know, it's it's honestly difficult to be productive with the candidates going on. Obviously, it's the event of the year. So it's great. It's great to see what everyone has cooked up. Hello, Perpicante. Good to see you. I needed this recap. My brain is too smooth to follow without a chat explaining. You mean your brain or Brian? Hello, Guepe. Hello, Macaronios. Welcome, everyone. All right, so if you guys want, we can do like a full serious recap, and then we can also post it on YouTube. If that's what you guys want. Hello, Chip the Patata. Hello. Good to see you. And by the way, we are live on both Twitch, Kick, and YouTube. If you guys want, we can go live on other platforms as well. Let me know. We can. We can go... Alright, so let's see. Yes, maybe Naka game. Okay. I mean, the Hikaru game was definitely in the game of the round. What is this opening called? Let's see. Let me seriously prepare for this recap. I think, isn't this called like... This move has a name. Hello, Carmel, good to see you. What's it called? The Sicilian bull... It's got a name. Wait, what is this called? Does anyone know? I don't know the name. The Venice opening? Hello, starting chess, Perpicante. Hello, Benjamin Buck's grandson. Hello, Caleb. Good to see you. The Sicilian, no. Yeah, no exciting results, but definitely some exciting games. Wait, let me see. Sicilian Venice variation. Is it though? Oh wait, is it called the Prince variation? Wait, let's figure this out. Now, how do you call this opening? How do you call this opening? I'm sure it has a name. Wait, does anyone know? Can we have an intense soul-star and catchphrase for the intro to the video for YouTube? If that's what you want. Hello, Michael. It's not the Scheveningen. No, this... Whoa, thanks, Hamanisco, for the 5 months. A tier 1, thank you. Okay, nice, nice. Good cash game, not this. We will have a look at that, Mr. Hype Man, YouTube farming. Did I? Yes, you did a great job commentating, Mr. Hypeman. Mr. Hypeman, if you want, maybe we can have you for a tournament, if you think you can do that. But you need to be respectful, you need to be, you know, professional. But then we might have you for a tournament, if that's what you want, for the Spring Classic. Venice Attack? Dude, I honestly don't know. It's saying Venice Attack. Is this called the Venice Attack? Respectful? Let's see. Apparently it is the Venice Attack. We will go with that. I guess we're gonna call it the Venice Attack. If that's what you guys want. What is respect? Well, you know what respect is, Mr. Hype Man. Alright, okay. Okay, anyway, let's see what's going on. Whoa, thanks Robert J. Oppenheimer for the 300 bits.
Robert_J_Oppenheimer just cheered 300 bits. Hey BJ, how's it going?
It's going pretty well, thank you. Thanks for the 300 bits. How are you doing? Hey, don't say that, Mr. Hype Man. Dude, stop it. Hello, Big Trout. Okay, we'll call it the Venice Attack of the Sicilian. That's what we'll go with. Alright. Do you guys just want to recap the Fabiano vs Hikaru game? Or all the games? Or like, just one game as a separate video? What do you guys want? Let me know. Let's pull up the other games. So we're ready to do that. Okay, so that is that. We'll pull this up here. This is Gucci. All right. I guess. Yeah, let me know what you guys want to do. If you guys just want to recap one game or all of the games, let me know. Let's see what the chat is saying. All games is a lot, Steamer Beaver. Alright. But if that's what you guys want, that's what we can do. The game I like most. Well, To be fair, some games are kind of short. Some games are kind of short. So fine. 4 is a big number. Okay, so if we do all games, we're definitely going to start with this one. This was the first game that ended in a draw. Then we will do this one. And then we will do... I guess this one and then this one. Alright. Okay, you feel bad for Fabiano? Hey, he didn't win, that's on him, you know? There were definitely some exciting games, yeah. There were definitely some exciting games. Alright, so if you guys are ready, wait, let me adjust the scene a little bit. Then we're gonna do a recap. That's what you guys want. Just a second. I'll hide this stuff for now. And then maybe I'll add this. Just to fill up some, you know, empty space. Second. All right. I guess this could look better, but it's whatever. All right. So if you guys are ready, we're gonna do we're gonna recap all of the games, okay? Okay. Anyway, you're do we want to do like a nice intro? Do you guys have a nice idea for a nice intro? Let's do it. I mean, usually I just say like, hello everyone and welcome to another video, you know? It's very basic. No, we're not gonna do that, Mr. Hype Man. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, you know? Maybe that would be fun. To do like a mix of Hikaru and Gotham. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Well, what do you think about that? Okay. All right. Okay. So let's recap the games. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today was the start of the FIDE candidates, and we had some very exciting games. Now, for those of you who don't know, the FIDE candidates is a tournament that's usually held every 2 years, and the winner of this tournament can challenge the world champion for the world championship title in a match. So there's 8 players. Everyone here has a chance to fight for first place, and that's what they're all going for. So without further ado, let's have a look at the game. So first off, we had Jan Opomniachtchi. The winner of the 2022 candidates, he absolutely crushed the field with 9.5 out of 14. And in the first game, he was playing with the black pieces against Nijat Abasov. So he is a big favorite. He has a big rating advantage, but he is playing with the black pieces. So it's not that easy. Like, is he going to take a lot of risk? Is he going to play a little bit more solid? Let's have a look at this game. So Nijat opened up with the move d4. Now we see knight f6 by Nepo, c4, e6, knight to c3. And with this move, Nijat is inviting the Nimza Indian defense with bishop to b4. Check out my courses. Okay, I'm just kidding. Yeah, if you want, you can check them out though. But Nepo went for something else. He did not go for the Nimzo. He went for the Queen's Gambit declined with the move d5. Now here, White's main continuation is to take on d5, follow the bishop to g5, pinning the knight. But Nijat went for a different approach. He decided to play bishop to g5 right away, developing the bishop and pinning the knight. Bishop e7 was played by Nepo, neutralizing the pin, and now the move e3 by Nijat. Very standard. Now also he's defending that pawn on c4 and continuing his development. h6 by Jan, hitting the bishop. And here white has to make a decision. Is he going to give up his bishop for the knight or just move the bishop back? Nietzsche decided just to play it very solid. He played bishop to h4, and here Nepo played a d takes c4. So he's simplifying the situation in the center a little bit. Nietzsche recaptured, and now pawn to c5. D takes c4, as pointed out in the chat, is not that rare. I think it's also what Nietzsche faced against Anish Giri in the FIDE World Cup in 2023, and that's actually the tournament from which Nietzsche qualified. Nietzsche had a fantastic World Cup. He came in 4th place, knocking out some of the best players in the world, and normally only the top 3 would qualify for the candidates, but in that candidates, Magnus won, so then then an extra spot cleared up, and that one went to Nietzsche. Anyway, let's get back to the game. So move c5 by Nepo, challenging white center. Nietzsche just decides to develop a knight f3, take, and here white has to make a decision. You can take with the e-pawn, but then you do have to deal with an isolated pawn in the center. I mean the World Cup. I'm sorry if I said something else. You can also take with the knight, keep it more symmetrical, but this is also pretty dry, and generally what black does here is something like bishop d7, followed by knight c6, and should all be pretty even. So pawn takes d4 by Nietzsche. Now the position is a little bit imbalanced, and perhaps that's what Nepo is hoping for. If he can keep a lot of pieces on the board, then he can really try to play against this isolated pawn. So he developed with knight c6, castles, castles, rook e1, very standard move by Nietzsche, and now the move a6 by Jan. So with this move, he wants to go b5, hit the bishop, and also fianchetto his own light square bishop on the b7 square. So let's see what Nietzsche did. He developed his other rook with rook to c1, b5, bishop b3, and bishop b7. And now, I think at this point, Jan must have been feeling pretty happy about the outcome of the opening. He's got almost all of the pieces on the board. Only 2 pawn trades have happened. White is an isolated pawn, so he has that imbalance that you normally want against a low-rated opponent. And he's up 20 minutes on the clock. But I think here, Nietzsche made a very clever, practical decision. He decides to simplify the game, and he does so by taking on f6, trading up the bishop for the knight, and after black recaptured, the knight is no longer controlling the d5 square, so here white is better prepared to go for the move d5, hitting the knight and the pawn on e6, so black has to take, and he recaptured with his knight. So he's a pretty active knight now in the center, aiming to neutralize black's bishop pair by taking the bishop on the very next move, and here Nepo played the move knight a5, hitting the bishop on b3, opening up his own bishop. Black, as you all can see, is perhaps a tiny bit better, but Nietzsche here played very solid chess. He decided to trade off his knight for the bishop. Black recaptured, and now queen at d4, another excellent move by white. If white doesn't do this, he could end up in big trouble. The pawn on b2 is under attack. Black can also sometimes take the knight on f3 and double the pawns in front of white's king, or go like rook d8, and black could get a really pleasant game. So queen e4, very good move to neutralize the game. Nepo took, white recaptured, rook a8. Still, Jan is a little bit better here with the black pieces, but it feels like the game should, one way or another, steer towards a draw. Rook cd1 by Nietzsche, black took, knight recaptured, and now bishop to d5. A nice move by Jan. He is kind of threatening to take the knight because that will give white double isolated pawns, right? Which could be pretty weak. And if you move the knight, then you can hang the pawn on a2. So Nietzsche played the move f3, preparing to bring his king into the center. So Jan took, takes on d1, and rook to c8. So here, I feel like Jan is a little bit better. What he can often do is go after this pawn, rook c2, take here. For example, in case white goes rook d6, this doesn't quite work out because black goes here, you take, black takes here, and black is one move faster. If the white rook had been on b6, then white can take, and white emerges up a pawn. But here, white doesn't have a good way to defend the pawn on b3. For example, in case you go rook a3, then there's b4, black will take. This might still be a draw, but it's unpleasant. You're going to have to defend, and it feels like this is the maximum black can get from the position. But Nietzsche, of course, saw all of that coming. He played the move rook to d2, stopping move rook c2 from black. And here, I was a little bit surprised by Nepo. Okay, he played king f8, a logical move, preparing to bring his king to the middle. Rook e2, rook d8, another nice move. He wants to go rook to d3. And here, white is just in time to go king f2. So that white can meet the move rook d3 with rook e3, defending the pawn on b3. And if you go rook d2, then rook d2, then rook e2 back. So Nepo went rook d4, trying to go to b4. Nietzsche, after some precise calculation, played rook to e4. He did not fear the pawn in game. Feels like it should just be a draw because white's king gets very active into the middle right away. So Nepo played rook d1, rook e1, rook d2, rook e3, rook d4. And after some back and forth action, this game just ended in a draw, which was slightly surprising to me. I felt like Jan could have perhaps pushed on for a little bit longer. I mean, these pawns on the queen side are weak, they are doubled and isolated. And it feels like black doesn't have any risk. So why not just play on with a move like, you know, rook d6, white plays a move like, I don't know, rook e3, maybe something like g5, getting some space. And, you know, you can try to squeeze here a little bit, and if it's a draw, then, you know, there's nothing to lose. So anyway, this game does end in a draw. Slightly disappointing result for Jan Palmiashi. He started off really well in 2022. He won the very first game with the black pieces against Ding Liren. But this game ends in a draw. So let's have a look at the other games. So the next game to finish was the game between Gukesh and Vidit. So Gukesh, the young prodigy from India, only 17 years old if I'm not mistaken. And Vidit, a little bit older, or quite a bit older. He's 29 years old. So Vidit qualified through the Grand Swiss. He won that tournament. Very impressive performance. And Gukesh qualified last minute through the FIDE circuit. The FIDE circuit was a circuit, as the name suggests, in which players could gain points throughout the entire year. And Gukesh had a very good year, and that's why he's here. So let's have a look at this game. So Gukesh also opened up with the move d4, d5 by Vidit, c4, e6, knight c3. So we have another Queen's Gambit decline. And here Vidit comes up with a very interesting move. He goes for the move pawn to c5, challenging white center right away. Now this can go into many different directions. For example, white's main move here is to take on d5, and here black can choose either just to recapture and play some sort of Tarrasch, followed by, you know, knight f6, often knight c6, and often black will have to deal with an isolated pawn, or what black can do is take on d4, and in case white recaptures, oh well, then there's knight c6, and so here black often goes down a pawn. Black can play for compensation. For example, black takes here, and then all of the pieces come out very quickly. For example, here, as you all can see, black is already better. So that's kind of the idea behind the opening. This is called, I think, the von Hennig-Schara Gambit. I think. I usually call it the Tarrasch Gambit, but the official name is the von Hennig-Schara Gambit. Gukesh perhaps did not expect this move. He didn't really want any of it. So he just plays a more solid pawn to e3, defending his pawn on d4. Maybe he did expect it, and this was his preparation. Knight f6 by FIDE. Knight f3, and now we are back into one of the main lines of the Tarrasch defense. So knight c6. So the position is symmetrical. Gukesh goes a3, so both sides are kind of waiting for each other to take this pawn over here. Because in case white takes, black can develop the bishop right away by recapturing the pawn. And same thing here, in case black takes, then white develops the bishop in one go. So Vidit continues on with this waiting game and plays the move pawn to a6. And here, Gukesh had enough of it. He decided to take on c5, black recaptured, and now he has the nice move pawn to b4, hitting the bishop on c5. Bishop to d6 by FIDE. And here, quite an interesting move by Gukesh. He goes for the move rook to a2, which might look quite surprising. Like, usually you don't move your rook early in the opening, but the idea is that often that the rook wants to swing along the second rank and put a lot of pressure on that pawn on d5. So here FIDE played knight e5, rook d2, he took an f3, white recaptured, and he just decides to castle. He completely ignores the threat on the pawn on d5, because in case white takes, black just goes e5, and despite white being up a pawn, black is actually doing completely fine here. And the main problem for white here is the king on e1. Where is the king ever going to go? Right now the king is in the center, and the king is not super weak, but it's also not super safe. And if you go kingside castles, the king also isn't super safe. So that is kind of the problem here for white. All right, so Gukesh played bishop to b2, a5, a nice idea by FIDE, putting pressure on the pawn on b4, and white took. And I think here FIDE was a little bit quick to play e5. I think with the move e5, he transposed back into his preparation. Probably he saw the lines, starting with takes, e5, bishop e2, and now a5. But he missed a bit of an opportunity. After c takes d5 here, he could have also played pawn takes b4, hitting the knight on f3. And it's definitely nice to get these moves in, open up the a file, also create a target for your bishop on b4. white can take on e6, but it feels like black should be better in these complications, even though it's all pretty well. White can, you know, take on e6 and take here, queen c7, throw in another check. The bishop is hanging. All very difficult to evaluate. So, you know, don't want to be too critical. I mean, obviously these players are very good. Again, FIDE just decided to make the decision to transpose back into his preparation with the move e5. All right, so knight b5 by Gukesh. He is practically sacrificing the pawn over here, so FIDE took. Now, you cannot recapture right away because black takes and your rook is in a lot of trouble. So Gukesh decides to take the bishop and now take on b4. But still, all of this feels quite risky because after queen takes b4, we see that white is quite a bit behind in development. It's still very difficult to get the king out of the center. You'd love to move your bishop and go castles, then white's doing pretty well, but you know, that's going to take some time. And in the meantime, black can create some threats with something like rook a2. Often this pawn is hanging as the rook is pinned. So Gukesh played the move queen to c2. All right, so now taking the sting out of rook a2. And here FIDE came up with a very flashy bishop to g4. This move looks spectacular. Because if you take the bishop, then there's rook fc8, hitting the queen. And for example, if the queen moves, then rook a2. And black's absolutely crushing here. The bishop's under attack. Knight of knight e4 is often flying in. White absolutely cannot go for this. But bishop g4, again, looks a lot flashier than it actually is. Perhaps instead, FIDE could have also gone for a move like, I don't know, taking the pawn on d5. Or maybe defending the pawn on e5 first, rook e8. But all very difficult to evaluate during a practical game. Again, instead he went for the move bishop to g4. And Gukesh found the only move here to maintain a balance, the move bishop to c3. Hitting the queen has to go to a3. Again, if you take the bishop, there's rook to c8. And the bishop is going to be lost, and black gets a very dangerous attack. So the players found the correct continuation. Bishop to b2, queen b4, bishop c3, queen a3, bishop b2, queen b4. And so this game ends in a draw as well. So 2 draws so far. Now, the next game that came to an end was the game between Fabiano Caruana and Hikaru Nakamura, but that is the game of the day, so I will save that one for last. Instead, first we will have a look at the game between Gucci Reza Perugia and Pragnananda. Thanks, Robert J. Oppenheimer, for the bits. Alright, so E4 was played by Gucci, e5 by Prag, knight of 3, knight of 3, bishop b5, the Ruy Lopez, thanks Robert. Alright, so bishop to b5, a6 was played by Prag. Now there's many things you can do against the Ruy Lopez. There's also knight f6, the Berlin defense, but Prag goes for a different line. He goes for the a6, bishop a4, knight f6, castles, and now knight takes e4. This is the start of the open Spanish, or the open Ruy Lopez. The closed Ruy Lopez arises after the move bishop to e7. But knight takes e4, as you can see, this opens up the game. Black taking a pawn very early on. So here's the thing, white is down a pawn, but he has a lead in development. So what do you want to do when you have a lead in development, but you're down material? You want to open up the center, and that's why Gucci played the move d4. Threatening the pawn on e5 right away. Now, it's not a good idea to take this pawn because this opens up the e file where the black king is. So don't go into this. The main line is b5, hitting the bishop, bishop to b3, and now d5, defending the knight on e4. But now white does get the pawn back on e5. The pawn on d5 is hanging, so Prag played the move bishop to e6 to defend it. Now here there's many moves white can go for. There's knight bd2, there's c3, bishop e3, queen e2. All of those are possible. And Gucci goes for, okay, Ali Reza goes for the move pawn to c3, with the idea to often go bishop to c2 very quickly. All right, so in this position right here, Prag plays bishop e7, all pretty standard, bishop to c2, and now the very precise bishop to g4. And judging by the speed, both players are probably still in their preparation. Also, I should have mentioned at the beginning of this video, is that for these games, both players have a time control of 2 hours for the first 40 moves, no increment, which is what we're all very used to at this point. So there's no increment. So if you get low on time, you can flag. After 40 moves, they will get an additional half an hour. and a 30-second increment. Now, the time control before used to be a lot longer. It used to be something like 2 hours for the first 40 moves, then another hour for the next 20 minutes for the 20 moves, and then an additional 15 minutes, and then an increment. I think it is good that they got rid of that third time control. It just makes the games a little bit too long. And also, an hour after move 40, personally, I think it's a little bit too long. So I like this a lot better. And apparently they have consulted with the players. Anyway, let's get back to the game. So after bishop to g4, pinning the knight, Alireza played the move queen to e1, hitting the knight on e4 and getting out of this pin. So Pragg moved his knight to c5, knight b2, knight e6. Again, look at the speed of the players. They're definitely still in their preparation. And now a very interesting move by Gucci, Alireza, he plays the move king to h1. And I think the idea often, let's say black castles, which is the most natural move, is to go knight to g1. This move might look very odd, but the idea is that you often want to go h3 and then f4. Like, let's make some random moves. Like, let's say black goes here, you want to go h3, hit the bishop goes here, and now f4. And this bishop is completely stuck in the triad. There's not much black can do about g4 coming next. And then the bishop is just getting trapped. So that is Alireza's idea, very original. And I think that's why Pragg played the move bishop to h5. So that now in case white goes knight to g1, you can go bishop to g6. Again, let's say castle here, then there's f4, and this bishop is quite stuck. It can often get trapped, once again by h3 and g4, or f5. But here, you go bishop g6 before this pawn is here, and so black is doing absolutely fine. So here, Alireza played the move a knight to b3, but with this move, he is inviting black to take, and that would double the white pawn. So Alireza, or Praggnanandhaa takes, white recaptures, and here, once again, in case if black does not pay attention and goes for a very natural move like castles, white gets a dominant position with the move f4, followed by f5. These pawns are just marching down the board. Rook g1 also very often is a very useful move, utilizing the half-open g-file. So Pragg plays another excellent move, bishop to g5, stopping white from expanding with the move f4. So rook to g1 was played by Alireza, I guess with the idea to potentially take and then go f4, or sometimes sack a pawn. But here Pragg takes the bishop, white recaptures, and now queen h4, another nice move. Again, making it difficult for white to get that pawn push to f4 in. Alright, so rook g4 was played, queen h5, knight d3, castles, and perhaps here Alireza misses a chance for an advantage with the move queen e3. The idea is just to double up the rooks, often again f4, f5, with some initiative, but instead he played the move queen to e2. Thanks Haha Hish for the tier 1, appreciate it. Alright, so queen e2 was played, f5, hitting the rook, and here Alireza shocked the entire chess world with the move on croissant. Alright, so white takes, of course both players saw this coming. The thing is, you kind of have to do this, because if you move the rook, then black can continue with moves like f4. This pawn becomes a little bit weak. So white has to take, because now the knight on e6 also becomes a little bit loose. But after takes, white does have these doubled and isolated pawns on f2 and f3, which can become quite vulnerable on the half-open f-line. Alright, so here Alireza played f4. Rook h6, threatening checkmate on 1, but now he can defend against it with the move f3, because the queen guards h2. Pragg brought in the rook with rook f8, queen f2, rook ff6, rook e1, and queen f7. Pragg here nicely re-maneuvering his pieces, and things slowly but surely started to look better for Praggnanandhaa. The time situation here is approximately even, but it feels like black is the slightly easier moves. And that's why Alireza took some time here. He goes queen g3, rook h5, a4, and we see Praggnanandhaa building up an advantage on the clock. Rook h6, rook e2, and I think here Alireza was in quite a bit of definitely practical danger. He's got only 5 minutes on the clock. Keep in mind that there's no increment, and he needs to make another 12 moves to reach a time control. So that's less than a minute per move. That's less than half a minute per move. But here, Praggnanandhaa made a mistake. He decided to force the issue. I think what he should have done is keep the tension, keep the position complicated, keep Alireza guessing what your next move is going to be, and keep it more abstract. So maybe with a move like rook f6, putting pressure on that pawn over here. This rook can also come here. But instead he went rook h3, attacking the queen moved back, and now he took the pawn. So like I said, this this forces the matter. So now Alireza found the move knight to c5, hitting the knight. And the thing is, you cannot take the knight, because in case you take the knight, now there's rook e8 check. In case you take the rook, there's queen takes e8 and it's checkmate. Because this king over here is completely stuck behind these pawns on g7 and h7. So you can go queen f8, but it's clear that black is lost here because you're giving up your queen. So Pragg cannot do that. Instead, he played queen to h5, creating a counter threat on the rook on g4. And here, probably because Alireza was so low on time, he missed an opportunity. He should have gone rook eg2. Again, this knight's on attack. You defend the rook on g4. It's not clear at all how this would have continued. There's some crazy lines, though. What Pragg should have done here is to move knight e5, hitting the rook. White takes. Now there's queen f7, threatening rook f1. And now, also, this knight's on attack, as now the e-file is blocked. It's all pretty wild. Bishop d3, apparently, covering this in case you take. Now white can take. And apparently, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of wild. It's kind of wild. But he should have gone for something like this. But I can't really blame him at all not going for this. Again, he's got 4.5 minutes on the clock. It's even difficult to figure out what's going on with the engine on. So Alireza went for the move knight takes e6, just taking the knight. Now Pragnananda took the rook, and he played a knight to g5. So he's hitting this rook, but he's also threatening this checkmate on e8, which is very difficult to stop. Like, it's very difficult to stop. So knight e5 was played by Pragg, a nice little move. Borussia took the knight, but here Pragg unleashed the brilliant rook takes h2. He's sacrificing the rook, but it's all leading to perpetual. White has to take, but now there's queen h5. Taking over here, by the way, also would have been good. Case of king h1, there's rook f1, and you win the queen. And if the king goes here, then there's check, and then a perpetual queen h5 and queen g4. And that's what happened in the game. He played queen h5 check, the king was here, queen g4, queen h5, queen g4. And so this game ends in a draw as well. All right, so now finally, let's get to the game of the game. The game of the day was definitely the game between Fabiano Caruana and Hikaru Nakamura. Fabiano, the #1 seed in the tournament, the only player besides Magnus Carlsen, rated over 2800. He's won a lot of super tournaments, a lot of these round robins. He's also won the candidates in 2018. He knows how to do it. And Hikaru, he's had a great year as well, but he's never had, like, he played once in the candidates in 2016, didn't have a great tournament there. He did quite well in 2022, but he wasn't ever quite in contention for first place. And also, partially because in 2022, Hikaru lost the very first round with the black pieces against Fabiano Caruana. And since the candidates is a tournament you have to win, you want to get off to a good start. You don't want to lose, get into the bottom half. You want to at least stay in the middle or move up into the upper half. So I viewed this game absolutely as a must not lose game for Hikaru. It's absolutely important that he does not lose this game against Fabiano, because Fabiano also is one of his biggest rivals. So let's have a look at this game. Now, also what I wanted to point out is that Fabiano Caruana and Hikaru played also in the first round of 2022. And I think that's because they're both from the US. And what FIDE does, we also saw some of the Indian players playing each other in the very first round. They want to get the pairings with players from the same country out of the way as quickly as possible. They don't want to have those pairings taking place in the last round, because then, you know, funny things can happen. You know, one player helping his friend from another country. So they want to avoid any of those things. I don't think any of those things are happening, but just to make sure none of that happens. Anyway, Fabiano opens up with the move e4, and already here surprised by Hikaru. Hikaru usually at the top level defends himself with the move e5, and he plays something solid like the Berlin defense. Now I'm sure that Fabiano had something cooked up here. Again, he had something like 2 months to prepare for this game. So Hikaru went for a completely different approach. He decides to play an opening that is perhaps not 100% correct, but that definitely surprises Fabiano. He goes c5, the Sicilian defense, all of this pretty normal. Knight f3, d6, d4, takes, knight f6, knight c3. Both players still blitzing out the moves. Now here, one of black's main moves is the move a6, leading to the knight variation of the Sicilian. I am sure that Fabiano has done a ton of preparation here, leading up to this game. So Hikaru decides to surprise him with the move e5. Now, honestly, I don't know how this move is called, but apparently after bishop to b5, this is called the Venice attack of the Sicilian. And here we see why black usually plays a6 before going e5, because with the move e5, you do allow this check over here, which is a little bit annoying because you have to block one way or another, and then this knight can jump here. So knight b7 was played by Hikaru, knight f5 hitting this pawn over here, and here a6, which is already the only move in a position. Challenging the bishop. Alright, so let's see what, thanks Chess24, DE for the raid. Dankeschön. Alright, so the pawn is under attack, and actually it surfaced on Twitter here. GM Benjamin Bach tweeted that Fabiano actually had a game against a player in Title Tuesday, and in that game, if I'm not mistaken, Fabiano took on d7, black recaptured with the queen. You have to defend this pawn. And then Fabiano played 93. And Fabiano went on to lose that game. So some very interesting statistics. In this game, Fabiano decided to do something else. He played the move bishop to a4. And by the time management, we can clearly tell that Fabiano is out of his preparation. He's already spent 18 minutes, while Hikaru has spent less than 2 minutes. Alright, so bishop to a4, b5, hitting the bishop b3, and now knight to c5, challenging the pawn on e4. So Fabiano goes bishop to g5, developing his bishop and pinning the knight, making sure that black cannot take. And so here Hikaru decides to chop off the horse with bishop takes f5, takes, and bishop to e7. Alright, so here Fabiano decides to give up his bishop for the knight on f6, and he does so because he wants to gain more control over that d5 square. And this knight on f6 is a crucial defender of these light squares in the middle. So Fabiano decides to take, and castles. And here, even though we have opposite color bishops, if Hikaru is a little bit slow here and he goes for a move like castles, white could get very dominant control in the center with like knight d5, e4 hitting the pawn on c3, can now comfortably be met with c3, and white's probably quite a bit better. This bishop is doing a pretty good job. This bishop, not as active. These pawns in the middle are quite blocked. So Hikaru went for a very direct approach. He went for the move pawn to e4. So he's pushing this pawn up. Again, now in case white goes knight d5, you're just in time to take this pawn on b2. Again, in case white goes c3, then white has a very big advantage, but white's not in time. And also Hikaru probably wants to take the knight on c3 and give white double pawns. Alright, so here Fabiano went for knight c4. The Chess.com engine gives this a brilliant, I think it's a little generous. It sacrificed the knight, but it's clear that after rook e1, white is going to get the knight back because it's pinned. So here Hikaru castled, Fabiano takes the knight, and here again, in case white is able to stabilize with a move like c3, white is quite a bit better because white's up a pawn, black's got some weaknesses, but black is just in time to take this pawn on b2 and hit the rook. Alright, so rook b1 was played, hitting the bishop, and here I think was the first moment where Hikaru was out of book. The Chess.com engine is suggesting queen f6 as the best move, and it's looking quite close to a draw. Like, perhaps Hikaru's opening strategy worked out pretty well. He's got opposite color bishops here. The position is fairly limited. And yeah, there's not a whole lot of play left in the position. But instead, he goes for the move bishop to f6. Now, you might be wondering, why is the evil bar in white's favor, right? I mean, the material's equal, and white actually has double pawns. Well, the thing is that white always has some annoying pressure on the pawn on f7, and that's not that easy to resolve. Furthermore, this bishop is more active than the bishop on f6. The bishop on f6 is not passive, but it's staring into nothing. It's not attacking anything, whereas again, this bishop is attacking stuff. This pawn on d6 is a little bit vulnerable, and the bishop on b3 does a pretty good job at supporting these pawns on c2 and a2. So again, the black pawns are a little bit easier to attack. The pawn on f7, for example, the pawn on d6, also these pawns over here can sometimes become a little bit vulnerable. So here Fabiano decides to activate his queen with the move queen e5, preparing it as a rook d1, going after this pawn over here. So Hikaru decides to activate his own rook with the move rook to c8, and now queen b7. And again, this pawn on a6 is quite awkward to protect. So Hikaru goes for the move rook to c5. Fabiano takes the pawn, rook takes f5, and now rook d1. Again, this pawn on d6 is quite weak. If we could magically transfer this bishop from a6 to c5, then black would be doing absolutely fine. Defending this pawn, putting pressure here, but you can't. You know, that's the game of chess. So Hikaru decided to play the move pawn to d5, solving the problem of the pawn and hitting this rook over here. But now Fabiano plays rook to b4, and now the pawn on b5 all of a sudden is very difficult to protect. And here, Hikaru made quite a serious mistake. Apparently what he should have done is play a move like queen e7, hitting the rook. And if you take the pawn, now there are so many, like, let's say, I don't know, bishop c3, hitting the rook, maybe bishop e1, hitting this pawn over here, and creating some counterplay. The real problem for white really is that this rook on a4 is a little bit clumsy and difficult to bring back to the defense. But Hikaru played bishop c3, hitting the rook right away. Fabiano decides to take the pawn, and here Hikaru comes up with a flashing rook takes f2. Now, the idea is that you cannot take the rook, because if you take the rook, then there's a check on the white king. If the white king comes back to hide, then there's bishop d4 check. You cannot take the bishop, because then there's checkmate on 1. Clearly, you cannot go to f1, as that leads to mate on 1. And if you go to h1, then there's bishop e5. And all of a sudden, white's up a full rook, but since all of these pieces are stranded on the queen side, it's very difficult to protect against the simple threat of checkmate on 1. For example, if you go h3, then there's queen g3, threatening mate. And if here, stuff like queen e3. And black gets perpetual in all of the variations. And if you go g3 here, I mean, black can take, but the easiest way to draw here is just check, check, and check, and check, and yeah, just back and forth. So you cannot take the rook. That leads to a forced draw. I mean, you can, but there's nothing more than a draw. And Fabiano wanted to go for the win, so he plays the move rook takes d5, hitting the queen. Queen h4 by Hikaru, bring the queen into the action and defending the rook. Queen d3, another excellent move, hitting the bishop and bring the queen closer to the defense. Rook f6 was played by Hikaru, and it's like, oh no, my bishop. My bishop. And Fabiano's like, wait, what? Free bishop on c3? Are you good, bro? He took, and Hikaru was like, queen f2, queen f1, and checkmate. So Hikaru Nakamura wins the first game with the black pieces against Fabiano Caruana. Thank you all for watching. Just kidding, that's not what happened. Of course, Fabiano did not take the bishop. Instead, he played the move pawn to g3, stopping that queen from coming in. And now this bishop is hanging as well. So queen to b4, I know my acting lessons are paying off, and this queen can often come here to harass the white king. So Fabiano goes king to g2, stepping out of the checks preemptively. Bishop b2 by Hikaru. And here Fabiano makes a big mistake. I think also partially because of the time situation. He's got 12 minutes. He needs to make another 30 moves. What he should have done is just push the a-pawn, a4, a5, a6. And the thing is, black first of all has to solve the issue of the back rank with a move like g6. But then, you know, this pawn can often go here. There's often rook d7, again, putting pressure on that f7 point. And it's not at all clear what this bishop over here is doing. But I think because Fabiano was getting low on time, he wanted to simplify the position a little bit. And he went for the move rook to f5, offering a rook trade. But as it turned out, this move was a blunder. Oh, wait, blunder! And so Hikaru goes for the move g6, hitting the rook. The rooks get traded off. So now there's no danger anymore of white ever, you know, running into an attack. But black's drawing chances really go up significantly. Queen f3 was played, hitting the bishop. Queen e7, bring the queen back to defend. And now he goes a4, king g7, stepping out of this pin potentially. White is still a little bit better, but most of his advantage is gone. But I think with this move, Fabiano throws away the last bit of his advantage. It's honestly difficult to see what he should do here. I mean, it's very difficult to make progress. But he goes for the move a5, just trying to push the pawn off the board. But the pawn on a5 actually becomes very weak, because here Hikaru finds a nice move, rook to a8, hitting the pawn. Now, you cannot take the rook, because then there's queen e2 check. Or, I mean, you can, but it leads to a forced draw after king h3, check. And here, you can also take the rook, that's absolutely fine. But this one is a forced draw. Alright, so Fabiano plays a rook to d5, defending the pawn. Rook a7 by Hikaru, making sure that this pawn is always protected. Rook b5, queen d8, hitting the pawn once again. Rook d5, queen c7, again hitting the pawn. And here the move h4 by Fabiano. He sacrificed the pawn, but his idea is that after all of these captures, there's queen b7. There's actually no good way to defend the pawn on f7, but with the opposite color bishops on the board, there's always a very high drawing tendency, especially because the white king on g2 is quite vulnerable. So Hikaru played queen at d8. He loses the pawn, but after king h6, again, this king is quite open, and now he's ready to give some checks of his own. So king h3, queen e7, offering the queen trade, queen c4, and after queen e3, a draw was agreed. So a big save by Hikaru. Again, if he had lost that game, that would have put him on the back foot from the very start of the tournament. But fortunately for him, he managed to hold on. And definitely a big miss for Fabiano. Again, if he would have won that first game, knocking out one of his big rivals in the very first game, that would have given him a big boost, but it wasn't meant to be. Anyway, I hope all of you guys enjoyed watching this recap of the very first round of the candidates in 2024, and I look forward to seeing all of you in the next video. All right, everyone. Okay, we knocked out the recap. Now let's try to throw it on YouTube. There is no increment during the first time control, but after the 40th move, there is a 30-second increment. So that's how it works. All right. Okay, so let's see what is going on. Oh, by the way, we had another funny video. We're gonna react to that very soon. Wait, give me just a second. All right. Wait, give me just a second. There was another video. Wait, so just let me know what you guys think. Hello, Sherlock. Good to see you. Guys, just a heads up, don't comment anything negative on the mainstream. They straight up ban you. What? They ban you? Hello, little Brando. Good to see you. Thanks, Robert J. Oppenheimer, for those 600 bits.
Robert_J_Oppenheimer just cheered 600 bits.
Hello,
hey,
Miguel.
Can you play W2D?
All right. Hello, Miguel. Hello, Andrew Beckhouse. Hello, Daw. I think this might be a good point. Oh, no, wait, actually. Huh. I went... This is all live on YouTube, so it is practically on YouTube already, but I guess I'll still upload it. But I think at this point, we probably wrap up the YouTube part, because Robert wants to play some music, and I don't want that to end up in on my YouTube stream, because then they're going to get mad at me and try to demonetize me. Thanks, Jim, for the 2 months with Prime. All right, so big shout out to everyone who's watching on YouTube. Feel free to come over to either Kick or Twitch. Both my usernames are GMBenjaminBach. So kick.com/GMBenjaminBach or twitch.tv/GMBenjaminBach. But we're going to wrap up the YouTube part for now. At least for a little bit.